Jack Thompson is an ordinary architectural engineer with a comfortable life in Florida, balancing work deadlines with family responsibilities and dreaming of the family trip to Japan they've been planning for months. But when his wife and daughter disappeared during a routine diving excursion off the Florida Keys, leaving behind only empty wetsuits and a cryptic note, Jack's perfectly ordinary world shatters as he discovers his wife may not be who she claimed to be. Pursued by mysterious government agents and guided by fragmented clues, Jack must navigate a shadowy world of international espionage and deadly secrets to uncover the truth behind his family's disappearance, before those hunting them can silence the truth forever. Quick pause before we begin. Write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from, and feel free to subscribe to our channel. It's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. 3 things remained etched in Jack Thompson's memory from that day: the perfect blue of the Florida sky, the metallic taste of fear when he first checked his watch, and the hollow sound of his own voice echoing across empty water. Sarah, Emma, 40 minutes. That's how long they should have been under. Standard recreational dive time. He'd stayed on the boat because of his ear infection. Doctor's orders. Sarah was the experienced one anyway. Patty certified for 15 years. 8-year-old Emma had been snorkeling since she could swim. Jack shielded his eyes against the glare. Nothing broke the surface but gentle swells. No bubbles. No snorkels. Just endless blue in every direction. His cell phone showed no service. The boat's radio crackled with static when he fumbled for it, his hands suddenly clumsy with adrenaline. Mayday, mayday! This is Private Vessel Serendipity. I have 2 divers missing off Molasses Reef. Repeat, 2 divers missing. The Coast Guard arrived within 20 minutes, but to Jack, it felt like hours. Their vessel appeared on the horizon like a mirage, growing larger as it cut through the waves. 4 uniformed officers boarded his rental boat, asking questions he could barely process. How long had they been under? What were they wearing? Any medical conditions? Any reason they might have surfaced away from the boat? No, Jack said, running his hands through his salt-crusted hair. Sarah would never take Emma away from the dive spot. She's meticulous about safety. Something's wrong. The lead officer, Lieutenant Rivera, according to his name tag, nodded grimly. We'll find them, sir. The current's not strong today. The search began methodically. Divers went down. Helicopters appeared overhead. Nearby vessels were alerted. Jack paced the deck of the Serendipity, which had been towed back to the marina to serve as a command center. Every time the radio chirped, his heart lurched. By sunset, they'd found nothing. No bodies, no equipment. Just Sarah's dive slate floating a quarter-mile from the site, blank except for a small heart drawn in the corner. Lieutenant Rivera sat him down as darkness fell. Mr. Thompson, we need to talk about tomorrow's search parameters. Jack nodded numbly. And I need to ask, were there any problems at home? Any reason your wife might have... He let the sentence hang unfinished. Might have what? Jack's voice hardened. Taken our daughter and disappeared. Are you serious? Rivera's expression remained neutral. We have to consider all possibilities, sir. Sarah loved. He corrected himself and hated it. Her life. We were happy. Emma's thriving in school. We've been planning a trip to Japan for next summer. He pulled out his phone, thumbed to photos of the 3 of them laughing on a beach just yesterday. This is us. This is our family, Rivera nodded. I understand. One more question. Did you notice anything unusual before they went in? Only then did Jack remember Sarah's lingering hug before she slipped into the water, the way she'd whispered, I love you, like it was a secret, and how she'd tucked an envelope into his beach bag when she thought he wasn't looking. There, Rayer. Might be something, he said slowly. Let me check my bag. The envelope was there, tucked between his towel and sunscreen, plain white with his name written in Sarah's elegant script. His hands trembled as he tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 3 lines. I'm sorry. I had no choice. Don't look for us. You won't find us. This is the only way. The paper slipped from his fingers. Lieutenant Rivera caught it before it hit the ground. Mr. Thompson, he said after reading it, his voice now edged with suspicion. I think we need to continue this conversation at the station. The interrogation room was small and sterile. Jack sat across from Rivera and a detective who introduced herself as Morales. His lawyer, hastily called and looking sleepy, sat beside him advising silence. But Jack couldn't stop talking. This makes no sense. Sarah wouldn't just leave. And she would never endanger Emma. Detective Morales slid a folder across the table. Your wife made 3 cash withdrawals in the past month, totaling $15,000. Can you explain that? Jack stared at the bank statements. That's not possible. We share all our accounts. Not this one, Morales said. Opened 6 months ago at First National. Solo account. And your wife's internet search history, Rivera added, opening another folder, shows research on living off the grid, identity change, and border crossing regulations for minors. Jack felt the floor tilting beneath him. This is insane. There has to be an explanation. We're also curious about your insurance policies, Morales continued. Your wife and daughter are covered for $2 million in accidental death benefits. Policy taken out 18 months ago. Jack's lawyer finally intervened. My client is a victim here, not a suspect. His family is missing. Missing by design, it seems, Rivera countered. Or dead, Jack whispered, the possibility cutting through him like a blade. Have you considered that she might have been coerced? Threatened? That note could have been written under duress. Morales and Rivera exchanged glances. We're exploring all possibility, Morales said carefully. But right now, we need to understand why your wife was planning to disappear. The questions continued until dawn. By then, Jack's voice was hoarse, his mind foggy with exhaustion and shock. They finally released him with instructions not to leave town. The house was unbearable in its emptiness. Emma's stuffed orca sat on her bed, waiting for a hug that wouldn't come. Sarah's coffee cup from yesterday morning still sat in the sink. Jack wandered from room to room, searching for clues for some sign he'd missed. In Sarah's home office, he booted up her computer. Password protected. He tried their anniversary, Emma's birthday, the name of their first dog. Nothing worked. Frustrated, he opened her desk drawers. Neat stacks of paperwork. Bills. Receipts. Nothing suspicious. The bottom drawer stuck, and when he yanked it harder, something shifted inside. He removed the drawer completely and found a thin manila folder taped to its underside. Inside was a medical report dated 6 months ago. The diagnosis jumped out at him in bold clinical terms. Stage 4 glioblastoma. Terminal brain cancer. 6 to 8 months life expectancy. Jack sank to the floor, the report clutched in his hands. Why hadn't she told him? Why face this alone? His phone rang, startling him. Unknown number. Mr. Thompson? This is Lieutenant Rivera. We found something. 2 wetsuits washed up near Key Largo. Are they? No bodies, sir. Just the suits. Jack closed his eyes. I have information you need to see. Hours later, the investigation shifted. Search and rescue became recovery. The working theory: Sarah Thompson, facing terminal illness and unwilling to burden her family with her decline, had taken her own life and, in a twisted act of maternal love, taken her daughter with her. Jack refused to believe it. Sarah would never harm Emma. Never. But as days passed, no new evidence emerged. The Coast Guard scaled back the search. The media lost interest. Friends stopped calling. Jack alone remained convinced there was more to the story. 1 week stretched into 2, 2 into 4. Jack took leave from his job as an architectural engineer. He rented a small boat and searched the dive site daily, ignoring the pitying looks from the marina staff. On the 31st day, he found their dive tank washed up on a small private beach 10 miles south. The gauge showed it still had air left. Why would they have abandoned it? When he returned to the marina that evening, a man in a dark suit waited on the dock. Mr. Thompson? I'm Special Agent Carter, FBI. We need to talk about your wife and daughter. The local police think they're dead, Jack said bitterly. Maybe, Carter replied. Or maybe Sarah Thompson isn't who you thought she was. Jack froze, the dive tank still in his arms. What does that mean? It means, Carter said, that before she was Sarah Thompson, your wife had another name, and possibly another family. As the sun set over the Keys, painting the water blood red, Jack realized his search for the truth was only beginning. And somewhere, perhaps, Sarah and Emma were still alive. Your wife was born Elise Blackwood, not Sarah Mitchell. Agent Carter spread photographs across Jack's kitchen table. At least that's the earliest identity we can confirm. Jack stared at the image of a younger Sarah, Elise, with darker hair and a different smile, standing beside a man Jack had never seen before. The timestamp read 2007, 2 years before he'd met her. That's Daniel Mercer, Carter continued, tapping the man's face. Her first husband. The word hit Jack like a physical blow. First husband? We've been married for 10 years. She never mentioned being married before. Because officially, Elise Mercer died in a house fire in 2009. Along with her husband, Jack's coffee mug slipped from his fingers, shattering on the tile floor. Neither man moved to clean it up. That's impossible, Jack whispered. The fire destroyed their Seattle home. 2 bodies were recovered, badly burned. Dental records confirmed their identities. Carter paused. Or so everyone thought. We now believe your wife falsified those records and staged her own death. Why would she do that? That's the million-dollar question. Carter pulled out more documents. Elise Blackwood Mercer had a troubled past. Foster care. Juvenile records sealed. Then she surfaces at 22, marries Daniel Mercer, who comes from serious money. Insurance policies. Property. When they died, several offshore accounts were drained. Jack shook his head. You're describing a stranger. Sarah is a pediatric physical therapist. She volunteers at animal shelters. She cries at commercials about hungry children. People contain multitudes, Mr. Thompson. Carter's voice was almost gentle. And sometimes they contain completely different lives. What about Emma? She's my daughter. DNA will confirm that. But it's possible Sarah, or Elise, saw you as her fresh start. A chance at a legitimate life. Jack stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. If what you're saying is true, why disappear now? Why take Emma? We were happy, Carter hesitated. There's been chatter. People looking for Elise Mercer. Dangerous people. We think she might have stolen more than money. The medical report, Jack said suddenly. I found a diagnosis of terminal brain cancer hidden in her desk. Carter's eyebrows rose. May I see it? Jack retrieved the folder from his office. Carter examined it carefully before making a call. I need verification on a medical record from Miami General. Yes, patient Sarah Thompson. He read off the record number and waited. Jack could hear a tinny voice on the other end. Carter's expression darkened. Thank you, he hung up. The record is fake. There's no Dr. Abernathy at Miami General, and that record number doesn't exist in their system. Jack sank into a chair. So she's not dying? No, but she wanted you to think she was. Classic misdirection. You'd be so focused on the tragedy of her illness, you wouldn't look deeper into her disappearance. She's alive, Jack whispered, the realization washing over him in conflicting waves of relief and betrayal. Emma's alive. Probably, Carter agreed, but finding them won't be easy. Your wife is a professional at disappearing. Why are you telling me all this? Isn't this confidential? Carter gathered his photos. Because we need your help. You know her better than anyone. The Sarah version of her, anyway. And because you have a right to find your daughter. Jack's phone rang. The marina. Mr. Thompson? You should come down here. Someone broke into your boat last night. 20 minutes later, Jack and Agent Carter stood on the deck of the Serendipity. The cabin had been ransacked, drawers emptied, cushions slashed. They were looking for something, the marina manager said. Or destroying evidence, Carter muttered. Jack noticed something the intruder had missed. A small seashell Emma had glued googly eyes onto during their first day in Florida. It had fallen between the seats. He picked it up, running his thumb over its ridged surface. I'll find you, sweetheart, he whispered. The marina's security cameras had captured a grainy image of someone in a hooded sweatshirt boarding the boat at 3:17 a.m. The figure moved with purpose, familiar with the vessel's layout. That's not Sarah, Jack said immediately. Too tall. Then she's working with someone, Carter said. That night, unable to sleep in the too-empty house, Jack began creating what he called the Sarah map, a giant corkboard timeline of their relationship, festooned with photos, ticket stubs, and notes. He traced their history backward, looking for inconsistencies, moments when Sarah might have contacted her old life, the annual girls' trips she took, the afternoons when her phone went straight to voicemail, the locked drawer in her office that supposedly contained only patient files, all innocent at the time, all suspicious in retrospect. He found her passport in their safe deposit box, the second one, he now realized. The Sarah Thompson passport with only 10 years of history. No stamps from before they met. Her driver's license was equally recent. 3 days after Carter's revelation, Jack returned home to find his front door slightly ajar. His hand trembled as he pushed it open. The house had been searched, more carefully than the boat, but just as thoroughly. In Emma's room, her favorite stuffed orca was missing from her bed. Jack called Carter immediately. Someone was here. They took Emma's toy. We'll send a team. Don't touch anything. But Jack was already searching for what else might be missing. In Sarah's office, the fake medical report was gone from where he'd returned it to the drawer. And on her desk, placed precisely in the center, was a small silver charm he recognized instantly, half of a mother-daughter heart set he'd given Sarah and Emma last Christmas. Emma had worn her half on a bracelet every day since. The message was clear: I have our daughter. The FBI team dusted for prints, photographed the scene, and installed surveillance cameras before departing. Carter stayed behind. This changes things, he said. We thought she was running from someone, but she's sending you a message. She wants me to know Emma is with her, Jack agreed. But why come back? Why risk it? Maybe she forgot something important. Or maybe what? Carter looked uncomfortable. Maybe she's giving you a chance to follow. That night, sleep-deprived and desperate, Jack returned to the Sarah map. What was he missing? His eyes fell on a photo from 2 years ago, a family trip to Vancouver. Sarah had insisted on visiting some obscure art gallery, leaving him and Emma at the hotel pool for an afternoon. He'd thought nothing of it then. He grabbed his laptop and searched for Vancouver art galleries. Dozens appeared. He added Seattle to the search, remembering her previous life there. One result jumped out: Blackwood Gallery. Sarah's original surname. The gallery's website showed an elegant space specializing in Pacific Northwest artists. Founded by Eleanor Blackwood in 1978. Current owner, Marion Blackwood. Jack stared at the founder's photo. The woman had Sarah's eyes. He booked a flight to Vancouver for the following morning, then called Carter. I think I found a connection. Sarah might have family in Vancouver. Don't go there, Carter warned. If she is in contact with family, they'll be watching for you. I need to find my daughter. And we will. But rushing in could spook them. Let us investigate first. Jack reluctantly agreed to wait for 48 hours. He spent the time reviewing their financial records, searching for any transactions in the Pacific Northwest. Nothing obvious appeared. Carter called the next day. Marion Blackwood is Sarah's, Elise's aunt. No criminal record, but she's been flagged crossing the border multiple times in the past year. She's the connection, Jack said, excitement building. Sarah must have reached out to her. We're watching the gallery. No sign of your wife or daughter yet. I can't just sit here, Jack protested. Actually, Carter said, there's something you can do. We need to make contact with someone from Sarah's past, someone who knew her as Elise. Daniel Mercer had a brother, Ryan. He never accepted that his brother died in that fire. Where is he now? Portland, running a tech company. We think he's been searching for her too. Jack felt a strange kinship with this unknown man. Both of them searching for the same woman, for different reasons. I'll talk to him, he said. Portland welcomed Jack with a steady drizzle, the perfect backdrop for his mood. Ryan Mercer's office occupied the top floor of a renovated industrial building overlooking the Willamette River. The receptionist directed Jack to a conference room where a man stood gazing out the window, his back to the door. Mr. Mercer? The man turned, tall with the same jawline as the man in the photo with Sarah Memoir Elise, but leaner, harder somehow. His eyes narrowed as he took in Jack. You must be Thompson. His voice was precisely calibrated between politeness and suspicion. The FBI agent said you wanted to talk about Elise. About Sarah, Jack corrected automatically, then caught himself. My wife. A bitter smile twisted Ryan's mouth. Your wife, my sister-in-law, the woman who murdered my brother. Jack's blood ran cold. Murdered? The agent said it was a fire. A fire she started, Ryan said, gesturing for Jack to sit. At least that's what I've believed for 10 years. He slid a file across the table. Inside were newspaper clippings about the fire, investigation reports, and photographs of a charred structure. The official report called it an electrical fire. Started in the master bedroom around 2 a.m. 2 bodies found. Case closed, Ryan's voice hardened with each sentence. Except Daniel had called me that very night, sounding terrified. He said Elise had been acting strange, that he'd found something disturbing on her computer. He was going to confront her. That doesn't prove murder, Jack pointed out. No, but this might. Ryan pulled out a flash drive. Security footage from a gas station 20 miles from their house, 3 hours after the fire started. Watch. On Ryan's laptop screen, grainy footage showed a woman in a baseball cap filling a car with gas, paying cash. Even with the poor quality and the cap shadowing her face, Jack recognized Sarah's distinctive way of tucking her hair behind her ear. She didn't die in that fire, Ryan said quietly. And I've spent 10 years trying to prove it. Jack sank back in his chair. Did your brother have any children? Ryan looked surprised by the question. No. They'd been trying, but... He trailed off. Why? I need to know if Emma is mine, Jack admitted. The possibility that Sarah had taken someone else's child had haunted him since Carter's revelation. Ryan's expression softened slightly. Daniel couldn't have children. Medical issue from childhood. If your daughter was born during your marriage, she's yours. Relief flooded Jack, followed immediately by renewed determination. Why would Sarah, Elise, fake her death and leave your brother? That's what I've been trying to figure out for a decade. Ryan opened a drawer and pulled out more files. Daniel wasn't just my brother, he was my business partner. We created an encryption algorithm that several government agencies were interested in. After the fire, I discovered backups of the code were missing. You think she stole it? I think someone hired her to steal it. Daniel met her at a tech conference. Whirlwind romance. Married within 6 months. Looking back, it was all too perfect. Jack thought of his own meeting with Sarah at a charity run, both of them volunteering. Their easy conversation. The immediate connection. Had that been calculated too? Ryan continued. 3 weeks after the fire, a Chinese company announced a breakthrough in encryption technology suspiciously similar to ours. Timing wasn't coincidental. Corporate espionage, Jack murmured. That's what I thought at first. But then I started receiving threats. My home was broken into. My car was tampered with. Ryan's knuckles whitened around his coffee mug. This wasn't just about stealing technology. There was something else on those drives. What? Ryan hesitated. I'm not entirely sure. Daniel handled certain sensitive government contracts. He was paranoid about security. Whatever it was, people are still looking for it. And now they've found Sarah, Jack said, the pieces clicking into place. That's why she disappeared again. If she has what they want, your daughter is in danger, Ryan said bluntly. These people don't care about collateral damage. Jack stood, suddenly needing to move. I have to find them before these people do. Ryan nodded. Now, I've been tracking Elise for years. I have resources, contacts. I'll help you. Why would you help me? Because I want answers too, Ryan said simply. And because no child should suffer for their parents' mistakes. As they shook hands, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just 4 words that made his heart stop. Check Emma's favorite book. He called Carter immediately. I need to get home. Now. Emma's bookshelf held dozens of well-loved volumes, but Jack knew exactly which one the message referred to. The Secret Garden, the story Sarah read to Emma every night before bed. The book looked ordinary on the shelf, its spine cracked from frequent reading. But when Jack opened it, he found pages had been cut out in the center, creating a hollow space. Inside was a small flash drive and a handwritten note. If you're reading this, they found me. The truth is on the drive. Trust no one, especially not the FBI. They're compromised. I'm sorry for everything. I loved you. That was never a lie. Find us at the beginning. Jack stared at the cryptic message. The flash drive heavy in his palm. The beginning. Where it all started. His phone rang, Carter again. Thompson, we've got a lead. Facial recognition picked up your wife at a border crossing into Canada yesterday. She had a child with her. Jack's heart raced. Where in Canada? Vancouver. The beginning. Where Sarah had come from. Where her family was. I'm going there, Jack said, already moving toward his bedroom to pack. Wait for backup, Carter insisted. We're assembling a team. Jack thought of the warning on the flash drive. Trust no one, especially not the FBI. Of course, he lied. I'll wait. He hung up and immediately called Ryan Mercer. I need a private plane to Vancouver. Tonight. No flight records. You found something, Ryan said, not a question. Yes. And Sarah says the FBI is compromised. There was a long pause. That would explain a lot. I'll make some calls. As dusk fell, Jack slipped out his back door, the flash drive and Sarah's note secure in his pocket. Whatever truth Sarah had been hiding, whatever danger she was running from, he was finally on her trail. Emma's book had shown him the way, and in Vancouver he would find the answers, or die trying. The flight to Vancouver on Ryan's private jet took just over 2 hours, but to Jack it felt like an eternity. Every minute increased the gap between him and his daughter, between questions and answers. The city lights emerged from the darkness as they descended, a constellation of possibilities where Sarah and Emma might be hidden. Ryan had arranged for a car to meet him at a private airstrip outside the city, a black SUV with tinted windows driven by a man who introduced himself only as Vega. Mr. Mercer says you need discretion, Vega said, his voice a low rumble. I can provide that. Jack studied the man, military bearing, watchful eyes, the subtle bulge of a shoulder holster beneath his jacket. You're more than just a driver. A ghost of a smile touched Vega's lips. Let's say I handle specialized security concerns for Mr. Mercer's operation. Where to first? Blackwood Gallery, Jack replied, checking the address on his phone. In Gastown. Vega nodded, pulling smoothly into traffic. It's closed at this hour. I know. I just want to see the place. Get a feel for it. What Jack didn't say was that he needed to determine if the gallery was being watched by Sarah, by whoever was hunting her, or by the FBI team Carter had mentioned. His instincts told him all three might have eyes on the location. The gallery occupied the ground floor of a renovated heritage building in Vancouver's historic district. Its windows were dark, display lighting turned off for the night, but the space spoke of money and taste. Northwest Indigenous art featured prominently in the window display, alongside contemporary sculpture and painting. Circle the block, Jack instructed. Slowly, Vega complied, and Jack scanned the surrounding area. The coffee shop across the street, the apartment windows above neighboring businesses, the parking spaces where someone might conduct surveillance. Nothing stood out immediately, but the hairs on the back of his neck prickled. They were being watched. He was certain of it. Now what? Vega asked after they'd completed the circuit. Jack considered his options. Approaching the gallery directly seemed foolish. If Sarah's Aunt Marion was in contact with her, the woman would be cautious, especially after hours. But he needed to establish a connection somehow. There's a hotel 2 blocks from here, he decided. So drop me there. I'll check in, then proceed on foot. The boutique hotel provided what Jack needed, a base of operations and a plausible reason for being in the neighborhood. In his room, he unpacked the few items he'd brought, then set up a makeshift command center. The flash drive from Emma's book was his priority. He inserted it into his laptop, immediately encountering a password prompt. Jack stared at the screen, considering what Sarah might have chosen. Their anniversary? Emma's birthday? Those seemed too obvious for someone with her apparent background. On a hunch, he tried the title of Emma's favorite book, Secret Garden. Access denied. He tried variations, Secret Garden, S Garden 2016, with the same result. What else would Sarah use that he'd recognize? Jack sat back thinking about the note. Find us at the beginning. The beginning of what? Their relationship? That had been at a charity run in Miami, hardly a place to hide. Then he remembered their honeymoon, the first real vacation they'd taken together. Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula. Cenotes where they'd gone diving together. Sarah had been entranced by the underwater cave systems, calling them nature's perfect hiding places. He typed cenotes, Yucatan. The drive unlocked, revealing dozens of encrypted files with clinical names, KF operations, personnel records, financial trails, and one labeled simply family, the only one not encrypted. Jack opened it to find a video file. Sarah's face filled his screen as it began to play. She looked different. Hair pulled back severely, expression grave. Not the Sarah he knew at all. Jack, she began, if you're watching this, it means they found us. I hoped we'd have more time, but I've always known this day might come. She looked away from the camera briefly, composing herself. What Agent Carter told you about me is partially true. I was Elise Blackwood. I was married to Daniel Mercer. But the rest of the story is more complicated than he knows, or is telling you. Jack paused the video, struck by the confirmation. Part of him had still hoped for some other explanation, some misunderstanding that would restore the Sarah he thought he knew. That hope was now extinguished. He pressed play again. I worked for a classified program called Kingfisher, Sarah continued. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, it was a joint operation between certain elements of intelligence agencies and private contractors, conducting domestic operations outside of congressional oversight. Jack felt a chill run through him. The Sarah on screen continued, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was revealing. I was recruited out of college. Young, no family ties, promising skill set. They trained me to infiltrate targets, gather intelligence, extract information. Daniel Mercer was one such target. His encryption work had drawn the attention of certain government entities who wanted access to it. She paused, her expression hardening. What began as an assignment became complicated. I discovered things about Kingfisher's operations, illegal surveillance, blackmail, targeted harassment of American citizens. When I tried to extricate myself, things went wrong. Daniel discovered my true purpose. There was a confrontation. Her composure slipped slightly. The fire wasn't planned. His death wasn't supposed to happen. But when it did, I took the opportunity to disappear with evidence of what Kingfisher was doing. I thought I'd covered my tracks completely. The Sarah in the video looked down, then back up at the camera, her eyes clear and direct. Meeting you was never part of any plan, Jack. Falling in love with you, building our life together, having Emma, all of that was real. The only thing I lied about was my past. Because I thought it was buried forever. Jack felt his throat tighten as the Sarah on screen leaned closer to the camera. 2 months ago, at a medical conference in Boston, I saw someone I recognized from Kingfisher. He recognized me too. I knew then that our time was running out. These people don't forgive and they don't forget. Once they identified me, they would come for everything. The evidence, me, and anyone connected to me. Her expression became fiercer, more protective. Taking Emma was the hardest decision of my life. But these people would have used her to get to me. As long as you genuinely didn't know anything, you had a chance to stay alive. That's why I left the false medical report, to give you an explanation you could accept without looking deeper. Jack paused the video again, overwhelmed. The elaborate deception, the fake cancer diagnosis, the staged diving disappearance, had been Sarah's attempt to protect him, a twisted form of love wrapped in layers of lies. The final segment of the video gave specific instructions: a meeting place in Mexico, a cenote they'd visited on their honeymoon, a specific date 7 days from when he found the message. Sarah believed it would be safe enough, remote enough for a brief reunion if he chose to come. Whatever you decide, Jack, she concluded, know that I love you. That was never a lie. And Emma loves you too. She asks about you every day. The video ended, leaving Jack staring at a blank screen, his reflection ghostly in its surface. The rest of the files on the drive would require decryption, but he suspected they contained the evidence Sarah had mentioned. Proof of illegal operations conducted by this Kingfisher program. His phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Hotel compromised. Move now. Backstairs. Black sedan waiting. Jack's instincts snapped to alert. He quickly gathered his belongings, securing the flash drive in his pocket. As he moved toward the door, he glanced out the window to the street below. A black SUV with government plates was parked across from the hotel entrance. Beside it stood Agent Carter, speaking into a radio. Carter had found him, which meant either the FBI agent had exceptional tracking skills, or Sarah's warning about the FBI being compromised was accurate. Either way, Jack needed to move. He slipped out the back stairs as instructed, finding a black sedan idling in the service alley. The driver's window lowered to reveal a woman in her 60s, with silver-streaked dark hair and Sarah's unmistakable eyes. Marion Blackwood, she said simply. Get in, Mr. Thompson. We don't have much time. As Jack slid into the passenger seat, Marion accelerated smoothly down the alley, away from the hotel and Agent Carter. Sarah contacted you, Jack said. Not a question. Elise, Marion corrected. And yes, she did. Warned me you might come looking. Said you were persistent. Where are they? Marion navigated through a series of turns, clearly checking for tails. Safe, for now, but not in Vancouver anymore. They left yesterday, Jack's heart sank. Then why are you helping me? Because Elise asked me to. And because your daughter deserves to see her father again? Marion's expression softened slightly. Emma talks about you constantly. The dinosaur exhibit you took her to. The treehouse you built her. The Sunday pancake tradition. The casual mention of these intimate family details hit Jack like a physical blow. This stranger knew things about his daughter, recent things, while he'd been living in painful ignorance. Where did they go? He asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. South, Marion replied. That's all I can tell you now. We need to make sure you weren't followed first. Carter found me at the hotel. Marion's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. That complicates things. If Carter's here, others won't be far behind. Others? Kingfisher operatives. The ones hunting Elise. Marion glanced in the rearview mirror. Did you look at the files on the drive? Just the video message, Jack admitted. The rest contains evidence of operations that powerful people would kill to keep secret. Illegal surveillance. Blackmail of elected officials. Worse, Marion turned onto a quiet residential street lined with expensive homes. Elise stole those files as insurance when she escaped them 10 years ago. Now they want them back. She pulled into the driveway of a modernist house set back from the street, activating a garage door with a remote. As the door closed behind them, she turned to Jack with an expression of grim determination. You have a choice to make, Mr. Thompson. Walk away now. Forget what you've learned. Return to your life. Let Elise and Emma disappear for good. It would be safer for all of you. That's not going to happen, Jack said firmly. Marion nodded as if she'd expected nothing less. Then we need to get you to Mexico. Tonight. Before Carter and his people realize where you're going. Vancouver greeted Jack with low-hanging clouds and persistent rain that matched his turbulent thoughts. Ryan Mercer's private plane had landed at a small airstrip outside the city, bypassing the usual customs procedures thanks to connections Jack didn't want to examine too closely. A nondescript sedan with tinted windows waited on the tarmac. Driver's name is Vega, Ryan had told him before Jack boarded the plane in Portland. Former military. Owes me a favor. He'll take you wherever you need to go, no questions asked. Vega turned out to be a stocky man with a close-cropped silver beard and eyes that missed nothing. He nodded once when Jack approached, opened the car door, and didn't speak until they were on the highway. Mercer says you're hunting ghosts, he said, his voice gravelly. Something like that. I know this city, every shadow, every hiding place. Tell me what you need. Jack pulled out his phone and showed him the website for Blackwood Gallery. I need to watch this place without being seen. Vega glanced at the screen. Upscale neighborhood. Lots of security. But there's a cafe across the street with a good vantage point. The cafe turned out to be a small French bistro with window seats offering a perfect view of the gallery's entrance. Jack ordered coffee and settled in for surveillance, while Vega positioned himself at the bar, angled to watch both Jack and the street. The flash drive from Emma's book burned in Jack's pocket. He'd brought his laptop but hadn't dared access the drive yet, not until he found a secure location. Whatever it contained had gotten Sarah and Emma hunted across international borders. It wasn't something to open in a public cafe. As morning stretched into afternoon, Jack observed the gallery's operations. A steady stream of well-dressed patrons came and went. Twice he saw a slender woman with silver-streaked dark hair, Marion Blackwood, he presumed, greeting clients at the door. His phone buzzed. Agent Carter. Yeah, where are you, Thompson? You weren't at your house when our team arrived. Jack had prepared for this. I'm staying with a friend. Needed some space to think. We had an agreement, Carter's voice hardened. You were going to wait for us. And I will, Jack lied smoothly. But I needed some time alone. This isn't a game. Your wife is involved in something dangerous. These people won't hesitate to use your daughter as leverage. Jack watched as Marion Blackwood locked the gallery door, speaking to someone inside. I understand the stakes better than anyone. We've got agents heading to Vancouver now. The Canadian authorities are cooperating. Stay put, and we'll bring you in when we locate them. Of course, Jack said, ending the call as Marion Blackwood stepped onto the sidewalk. She carried herself like Sarah. The same straight spine, the same purposeful stride. She turned right, walking briskly away from the gallery. Without hesitation, Jack left money on the table and followed, signaling to Vega. Marion led them on a winding path through upscale neighborhoods, finally entering a small park nestled between high-rise apartments. She sat on a bench overlooking a duck pond, pulled out a book, and appeared to read. Jack hung back among the trees, watching. After precisely 15 minutes, Marion closed her book, left it on the bench, and departed through the park's opposite exit. She's making a drop, Vega murmured suddenly beside Jack. Classic dead drop technique. They waited until Marion was out of sight, then Jack approached the bench. The book was another copy of The Secret Garden, too perfect to be coincidence. Inside the front cover, a business card was tucked into the binding. Kingfisher Lodge, Bowen Island. On the back, handwritten, Cabin 7, midnight. Vega examined the card over Jack's shoulder. Bowen Island's a short ferry ride from the city. Isolated. Good place for a meet or an ambush. Can you get me there? Better, Vega said. I can get you there without anyone knowing. Night had fallen by the time Vega's contact delivered a small motorboat to a private dock north of the city. The rain had intensified, reducing visibility and turning the waters of Howe Sound choppy and dark. Jack stood on the dock, rain pelting his jacket, as Vega checked the boat's systems. Weather's in our favor, Vega said. Radar won't pick us up in this storm, and nobody's out pleasure boating tonight. The journey to Bowen Island took 40 minutes of battling waves and wind. Jack's thoughts churned as violently as the water beneath them. What would he find at Kingfisher Lodge? Sarah and Emma? Or just another breadcrumb on this twisted trail? Vega cut the engine as they approached a secluded cove on the island's eastern shore. We're a quarter-mile from the lodge, he said quietly. Better to land here and approach on foot. They secured the boat and made their way through dense, dripping forest. The lodge appeared through the trees, a rustic main building with separate cabins scattered along the waterfront. Most windows were dark at this late hour, but Cabin 7 showed a faint light behind drawn curtains. I'll go alone from here, Jack said. Vega frowned. Not smart. We don't know what's waiting. If it's Sarah, she'll bolt if she sees anyone but me. Jack checked his watch. 11:52 p.m. Stay within shouting distance. Hugging the shadows, Jack circled the cabin. One door, two windows, minimal exterior lighting. He approached the door, hard hammering, and knocked softly. Silence. He knocked again, slightly louder. The door opened a crack, revealing not Sarah, but Marion Blackwood, holding a small revolver pointed directly at his chest. "Jack Thompson," she said, not a question. "Inside. Quickly." The cabin was sparsely furnished. A table, 2 chairs, a small kitchenette, and a door presumably leading to a bedroom. No sign of Sarah or Emma. "Where are they?" Jack demanded. Marion gestured to a chair with the gun. "Sit. We don't have much time." "I didn't come here to play games," Jack said, remaining standing. "Where is my daughter?" "Safe," Marion replied, "which is more than I can say for you." "You were followed from Vancouver," Jack tensed. "That's impossible. We came by boat." "Not by the FBI. By the others." Marion moved to the window, peering out between the curtains. "They've been watching the gallery for weeks. When you showed up, they knew Sarah had contacted you." "Who are they?" Marion's mouth tightened. "Same people who've been hunting my niece for 10 years. The people she stole from." "The encryption algorithm," Jack said. "Ryan Mercer told me about it." Marion's eyebrows rose slightly. You've been busy." "But no, it wasn't about the algorithm. That was just her cover story. What Sarah Elise took was far more valuable." "Then tell me what the hell is going on," Jack snapped, his patience finally breaking. "My life has been torn apart. My daughter's missing. I deserve the truth." Marion studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes, you do," she lowered the gun. "Sarah wanted to tell you herself, but there's no time now. She left something for you to explain everything." "The flash drive," Jack said. "You found it. Good." Marion moved to a side table and removed a laptop from a drawer. "That drive contains evidence that could bring down some of the most powerful people in intelligence communities on both sides of the border. People who've killed to keep their secrets." Jack pulled the drive from his pocket. "What kind of evidence?" "Project Kingfisher," Marion said, the name matching the lodge with sudden significance. "A black ops program run jointly by elements within the CIA and certain private contractors. Officially, it didn't exist. Unofficially, it authorized extreme measures against domestic targets deemed threats to national security." "What does this have to do with Sarah?" "Sarah, Elise back then, was recruited out of college for her computer skills. Brilliant, adaptable, and with no family ties. The perfect candidate." Marion's expression darkened. "They trained her to infiltrate suspected terrorist cells, hacktivist groups, anyone they considered dangerous. Her job was to gather intelligence and, when necessary, plant evidence." Jack felt sick. She framed innocent people. Some were innocent, some weren't. The point is, the program operated without oversight, without warrants, without any legal authority. And Elise was very good at her job. Until she was tasked with targeting Daniel Mercer. His company had developed encryption that agencies couldn't crack. They wanted backdoor access. He refused to cooperate. "So they sent Sarah to marry him and steal it," Jack said, pieces falling into place. "Yes, but during the operation, she discovered Project Kingfisher wasn't just targeting potential terrorists. They were going after journalists, activists, even politicians who threatened their budget or questioned their methods. She found evidence of assassinations disguised as accidents, evidence planted to justify arrests, psychological operations against American citizens." Jack struggled to reconcile this with the woman he'd married. "So what happened with Daniel Mercer?" Marion's face tightened. "Elise was supposed to copy the encryption algorithm, plant evidence suggesting Daniel was selling it to foreign governments, then disappear. But she'd begun to have doubts about her handlers. She copied everything, not just the algorithm, but internal Kingfisher documents, operation records, financial trails. She was building an insurance policy. Daniel discovered what she was doing," Jack said, recalling Ryan's story about his brother's worried call. "Yes, he found her downloading files in the middle of the night. There was a confrontation." Marion paused, looking away. "Daniel wasn't the monster Ryan believes he was, but he wasn't innocent either. His company had been quietly developing surveillance tools for Kingfisher, despite knowing how they were being used. So she killed him. It wasn't supposed to happen that way." Marion's voice dropped. "She claims it was self-defense, that he attacked her when he realized what she'd discovered. The fire was to cover her escape and make them believe the evidence was destroyed." Jack ran his hands through his hair, trying to process it all. "And then she met me. She ran for almost a year before she felt safe enough to create a new identity. Sarah Thompson was supposed to be her fresh start. She used some of the money she'd taken from Daniel's offshore accounts to build her new life. The physical therapy degree was legitimate. She'd studied it before being recruited. Was any of it real? Jack asked, his voice hollow. Our marriage? Our life? Marion's expression softened. All of it. She told me she fell in love with you the moment she met you. That you were everything Daniel wasn't. Honest, compassionate, without agenda. She thought she'd escaped her past. Until now. Until 2 months ago, Marion confirmed. One of her former Kingfisher handlers spotted her at a medical conference in Boston. She knew it was only a matter of time before they came for her. And Emma, Jack said. Why take Emma? Why not tell me the truth and let us face it together? Because the people hunting her don't leave witnesses, Jack. Not even children. Marion's eyes blazed suddenly. Especially not children who might remember faces, names, details. Jack felt the blood drain from his face. So she took her to protect her. And to protect you, Marion added. As long as you were genuinely searching for them, you weren't a target. You were just a grieving, confused husband who might lead them to Sarah. A sudden crack from outside made them both freeze. Marion moved swiftly to the window. They're here, she whispered. Earlier than I expected. Who? I don't know if they're FBI or Kingfisher operatives. At this point, the line between them is blurred. She moved to the kitchenette, pulling up a trap door hidden under a small rug. This leads to a tunnel that comes out near the water. Take the laptop. The password is Emma's birthday. You're not coming. I'll create a diversion. She pressed a key into his hand. There's a boathouse at the north end of the property. Inside is a boat with false registration. Get to Horseshoe Bay on the mainland, then take the highway east. There's a motel called the Wayfarer in Hope. Cabin 14. The key works there too. Sarah? If she's followed protocol, she'll contact you there. Marion checked her revolver. Now go. And Jack, trust no one. Not even Ryan Mercer. Before Jack could respond, the cabin's front window shattered. Marion shoved him toward the trapdoor. Go! The tunnel was low and cramped, forcing Jack to crouch as he moved through absolute darkness. The laptop was clutched against his chest, the flash drive secure in his pocket. Behind him, he heard shouting, then 2 gunshots. Marion. He wanted to turn back, but her words echoed in his mind. Emma needed him. Sarah needed him. He had to keep moving. The tunnel ended at a metal ladder leading up to another trapdoor. Jack pushed it open cautiously, emerging behind a cluster of rhododendrons near the shoreline. Rain still pounded down, obscuring visibility, a blessing in disguise. Keeping low, he made his way north along the water's edge until he spotted the boathouse Marion had mentioned. As he reached for the door, a hand clamped over his mouth from behind. Don't make a sound, Vega whispered in his ear. We're surrounded. Jack nodded and Vega released him. How many? Jack asked softly. 4 that I've seen. Professional. Military precision. Vega's eyes were hard in the darkness. Your meeting didn't go unnoticed. Marion, the woman in the cabin. 2 went in. Haven't come out. No more gunshots after the first ones. Vega's implication was clear. Marion was either dead or captured. Jack felt sick, but pushed aside the guilt. There's a boat inside. We need to get to the mainland. Vega considered this, then nodded. I'll create a distraction on the south side. When you hear it, get the boat and go. Don't wait for me. I can't leave you. You're not. I can take care of myself. Vega checked his watch. Only 2 minutes. Be ready. The former soldier melted into the darkness. Jack counted seconds, pressing himself against the boathouse wall, the rain soaking through his jacket. At exactly 2 minutes, a tremendous explosion rocked the night. Fire bloomed on the south end of the property, followed by shouts and running footsteps. Jack slipped into the boathouse. The boat was smaller than he'd expected, a sleek runabout with an outboard motor. He found the key already in the ignition. The boathouse door opened directly onto the water, and he carefully released the moorings before starting the engine. The sound seemed deafening in the enclosed space. Jack opened the throttle and shot out into the bay just as flashlight beams swept toward the boathouse. Bullets pinged off the water behind him as he accelerated into the darkness, rain stinging his face. He zigzagged to make himself a harder target, then aimed for the distant lights of the mainland once he was out of range. The crossing took 20 minutes. His nerves stretched to breaking point with each passing second. Was Marion dead? Had Vega escaped? Were there more operatives waiting on the mainland? All questions without answers. He docked at a small marina in Horseshoe Bay, tying up the boat as if he belonged there. The laptop and flash drive were partially protected by his jacket, but he worried about water damage. He needed to find shelter before accessing them. The highway was a half-mile walk from the marina. Despite the late hour and pouring rain, Jack managed to flag down a long-haul trucker who agreed to take him east. "Bad night to be hitchhiking," the trucker commented as Jack climbed into the cab. "Car broke down," Jack lied, grateful for the truck's warmth. "Where you headed?" "Hope," the trucker chuckled. "Aren't we all, brother? Aren't we all?" As the truck rumbled east on Highway 1, Jack checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Agent Carter, 1 from Ryan Mercer. He powered it off completely, remembering Marion's warning about tracking. Hope, British Columbia, appeared through the rain just before dawn. A small town nestled in the mountains. The trucker dropped him at a gas station on the outskirts. "Good luck with whatever you're running from," the man said as Jack climbed down. "What makes you think I'm running?" The trucker smiled tiredly. "Nobody heads to Hope in the middle of the night unless they're running to something or from something. And you keep checking the side mirrors." Jack found the Wayfarer Motel a half-mile from the gas station, a single-story building with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign. Cabin 14 was at the far end, partially hidden by overgrown pines. The key Marion had given him worked. Inside, the cabin was basic but clean. A bed, a small table with 2 chairs, a bathroom, and a kitchenette. Jack secured the door, closed the curtains, and finally allowed himself to breathe. The laptop had survived the journey, protected by its waterproof case. He dried it carefully before opening it, then inserted the flash drive with trembling fingers. Password: Emma's birthday. 07/15/2016. The screen filled with folder icons, dozens of them, meticulously organized and labeled. Operations, personnel, financials, targets, surveillance methods. A decade of Black Ops intelligence work. Jack opened a video file labeled Personal Jack. Sarah's face filled the screen. His Sarah, but different. Her hair pulled back severely, her expression harder than he'd ever seen it. She wore a plain black sweater, and behind her was a blank wall that could have been anywhere. "Jack," she began, her voice catching, "if you're watching this, then everything has gone wrong, and you've been dragged into my nightmare. I'm so sorry." She looked away from the camera briefly, composing herself. "Everything Marion has told you is true. I was Elise Blackwood. I was recruited by a program called Kingfisher out of college. I did terrible things in the name of national security. Things I can never atone for." Jack paused the video, staring at her frozen face. The woman he'd built a life with. The mother of his child. A stranger. He pressed play again. Daniel Mercer was a target. I was sent to get close to him, to gain access to his company's encryption technology. But during that operation, I discovered that Kingfisher had gone rogue, operating without oversight, targeting Americans for political reasons, violating every law and ethical principle. She leaned closer to the camera. When Daniel caught me downloading files, he panicked. There was a struggle. His death was an accident, Jack, but the fire, that was deliberate. I needed everyone to believe we were both dead. Jack's mind flashed to Ryan Mercer, still grieving his brother after a decade, still hunting the woman he believed had murdered him. I ran for my life, carrying evidence that could expose dozens of government officials and contractors. I created Sarah Thompson from scratch. And then I met you, her expression softened. You weren't part of the plan, Jack. Neither was Emma. You were the miracle I never expected. The life I didn't deserve. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought I was safe. I was careful. Never used social media, avoided cameras, stayed away from my old contacts. But last month at that medical conference in Boston, I saw him, Richard Carmichael, my former handler at Kingfisher. He saw me too. Jack remembered the conference. Sarah had come home early, claiming food poisoning. She'd been quieter afterward, jumpier. These people don't forgive, and they don't forget, Sarah continued. Once they identified me, it was only a matter of time before they came for the evidence. For me, for anyone connected to me, she wiped her eyes. Taking Emma was the hardest decision of my life, but I couldn't leave her with you, not when they might use her to get to me, and I couldn't warn you without making you complicit. As long as you genuinely didn't know, you had a chance to survive. Jack's throat tightened. Even in her betrayal, she'd been trying to protect him. The evidence on this drive can destroy Project Kingfisher. Names, dates, operations, funding sources, everything. But it's also a death sentence for anyone who possesses it. That's why I had to disappear again. Sarah leaned forward, her expression fierce. If you've come this far, you have a choice to make. You can turn this evidence over to the right people. There's a journalist I trust. Contact information is in the folder marked fail-safe. She has connections to protect you. She paused. Or you can walk away. Delete the files. Go back to your life. Tell the authorities you never found us. It would be safer. Jack knew which option she expected him to choose. The safe one, the rational one. But if you want to find us, if you want to see Emma again, there's a third option. Sarah's expression changed, became almost tender. Do you remember our honeymoon? Where you taught me to free dive among the ruins? I'll wait for you where the lady with one arm watches over the blue hole. 7 days from when you find this message. Jack's mind raced. Their honeymoon in Mexico. The cenote where they dived together. The broken Mayan statue overlooking it. I love you, Jack. That was never a lie. Whatever you decide, please know that. The video ended. Jack sat motionless, overwhelmed by revelations and choices. A notification pinged on the laptop. A news alert that had been programmed to trigger on certain keywords. Dread pooling in his stomach, Jack clicked on it. A local Vancouver news site reported breaking news. Fire at exclusive Bowen Island resort claims 2 lives. The article mentioned unconfirmed reports of gunfire and a police investigation underway. No names had been released. Marion, Vega, one or both of them dead because they'd helped him. Jack closed the laptop and moved to the window, carefully peering through a crack in the curtains. The motel parking lot was empty except for a few trucks and an old Chevy. No sign of surveillance. But for how long? His options crystallized in his mind. 1. Go to the authorities, surrender the evidence, hope they believed his ignorance, and spend the rest of his life wondering what happened to Emma. 2. Destroy the drive, walk away, build a new life alone. 3. Follow Sarah's breadcrumbs to Mexico. To Emma. To danger. Jack Thompson, architectural engineer, husband, father, had lived his life by logic and calculation. Precise measurements, verified materials, safety factors. But the man who stood in that motel room in hope was no longer that person. That Jack Thompson had died the moment his wife and daughter disappeared beneath the Florida waters. This new Jack reached for the motel phone and dialed a number from memory. Ryan, I know what happened to your brother, and I know where Sarah's going. As dawn broke over the mountains, Jack Thompson stepped out of cabin 14 with a laptop and flash drive secure in a backpack. The quiet streets of Hope seemed aptly named as he walked toward the bus station. Behind him, the Wayfarer Motel receded into the early morning mist, like the life he was leaving behind. The journey to Mexico felt like traveling through another life. Bus to Vancouver, flight to Dallas, another to Cancun, each transition accompanied by the constant, gnawing awareness of pursuit. Jack purchased tickets under the name Thomas Jackson, using the emergency cash he always carried. He bought new clothes in airport shops, ditched his watch, and purchased a prepaid phone. Basic evasion techniques gleaned from the spy novels Sarah had always found amusing. Had she been laughing at his naivety all along? Ryan Mercer had been surprisingly calm when Jack revealed the truth about Daniel's death. I've suspected something like this for years, he'd said. The official fire report never added up. Where are you now? Can't say, Jack had replied, instinct overriding his initial impulse to trust. But I'm following a lead to find them. Let me help, Ryan had insisted. I have resources, connections. I work alone for now, Jack had cut him off. But I'll need an exit strategy when I find them. Somewhere safe. Ryan had been silent for a moment. I have a property in Costa Rica, off the grid. I'll text you the coordinates. No electronic communication after that. Assume everything is compromised. The property information had arrived minutes later, along with a cryptic message. She won't be alone. Watch your 6. Now, as Jack stepped from the airport into Cancun's humid embrace, he wondered if he'd made the right call involving Ryan. Marion's warning echoed in his mind. Trust no one. Not even Ryan Mercer. The taxi driver eyed Jack's minimal luggage. Hotel? Resort? Tulum, Jack replied, having researched the closest town to the cenote Sarah had mentioned. The drive took nearly 2 hours, winding down the coastal highway past endless resorts and glimpses of the Caribbean's impossible blue. Jack's mind drifted to the honeymoon 8 years ago. Sarah's delight at the small eco-hotel he'd found. Her fearlessness diving into the cenotes. The way she'd marveled at Mayan ruins as if seeing wonders for the first time. Had any of it been real? Or was she always Elise Blackwood, playing a role? The evidence suggested something more complicated. The Sarah who had raised Emma with such devotion, who had spent weekends volunteering at the shelter, who cried at sappy movies. That woman couldn't have been entirely fabricated. In Tulum, Jack checked into a modest hotel using cash and his Thomas Jackson alias. The room was basic, a bed, a bathroom, a small balcony overlooking a courtyard. Good enough for his needs. The first task was to locate El Ojo Azul, the Blue Ice cenote where they dived during their honeymoon. Jack unfolded a local map purchased at the hotel desk and searched for the familiar name. There it was, about 15 kilometers inland from Tulum. A natural limestone sinkhole connected to a vast underwater cave system, popular with tourists and divers, but remote enough to serve as a meeting place. Jack's phone, his regular one, powered off since Vancouver, remained in his backpack. The flash drive and laptop were hidden beneath a loose floorboard he discovered under the bed. The only technology he carried was the prepaid phone, which he used to search for diving equipment rentals in the area. Sarah had mentioned the lady with one arm, a partially damaged statue of a Mayan goddess that stood on the edge of the cenote. It was a distinctive landmark, one tourists often photographed, one that meant something personal to them. Jack had joked during their honeymoon that the statue reminded him of Sarah, serene but secretly powerful. Jack found a dive shop willing to rent equipment without asking many questions. He paid for 2 days, claiming he was meeting friends at the cenote. The shop owner recommended a local guide, but Jack declined. He knew the cenote well enough, and more importantly, he couldn't risk witnesses. That night, sleep eluded him. Jack sat on the balcony, watching lightning flicker on the distant horizon. The flash drive's contents weighed on his mind. He'd spent the flight reading through the Kingfisher files, each document more disturbing than the last. Project Kingfisher hadn't just been illegal surveillance, it had evolved into something far darker. Assassination orders disguised as national security operations, blackmail of public officials, manipulation of foreign elections. The tentacles stretched into intelligence agencies, defense contractors, and multinational corporations. And Sarah, Elise, had been part of it. Not just a passive participant, but an accomplished operative. The files contained mission reports with her code name, Mockingbird, detailing infiltrations, data extractions, even neutralization of security threats. She'd had blood on her hands long before Daniel Mercer. Jack closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the collision of the woman he loved and the operative revealed in those files. How did you reconcile such contradictions? The loving mother who taught Emma to be kind to everyone. The covert agent who had neutralized threats. The next morning, Jack rose before dawn. If Sarah's message was accurate, she would be at the cenote today, 7 days after he'd found her video. He packed light, diving gear, a waterproof bag with extra clothes, the prepaid phone, and a small canister of waterproof matches. Nothing that would slow him down if they needed to run. The taxi dropped him at the cenote entrance just after sunrise. A small ticket booth stood empty, too early for the official opening. Jack followed a familiar path through tropical vegetation, the morning air thick with humidity and the scent of flowers. El Ojo Azul appeared through the trees, a near-perfect circle of deep blue water surrounded by limestone cliffs. Steps cut into the rock led down to a small wooden platform at water level. On the opposite side, partially obscured by foliage, stood the damaged statue of the Mayan goddess, the lady with one arm from Sarah's message. Jack scanned the area. No other visitors yet. No sign of Sarah or Emma. He set up his diving gear methodically, muscle memory taking over despite the years since he'd last dived. Sarah had been the enthusiast, getting him certified before their honeymoon so they could explore the cenotes together. Now he wondered if she'd had other reasons for wanting him certified. Had she been planning an escape route even then? As he checked his equipment, movement caught his eye. A flash of color among the trees near the statue. Jack froze, watching. A moment later, a small figure emerged onto the rocks. Emma? His heart stuttered. She looked taller than he remembered, her dark hair longer, pulled back in a braid. She wore shorts and a bright blue t-shirt, standing with one hand on the statue's base, looking directly across the cenote at him. Jack raised his hand slowly. Emma didn't wave back, but she didn't retreat either. She simply watched him, her expression unreadable at this distance. Where was Sarah? Jack scanned the water, the surrounding forest, the cliffs above. No sign of her. A chill ran through him despite the morning heat. Was this a trap? Had she sent Emma alone as bait? Before he could decide on a course of action, Emma moved. She made a series of quick hand gestures, diving signals. Jack recognized them instantly. Danger. Wait. Follow. Then she disappeared back into the trees. Jack sat motionless, processing. Emma had given him diving signals, communications they'd practiced together during pool sessions before the Florida trip. Sarah had taught her, making a game of it. Jack had never imagined those playful lessons would become a secret language between them. The message was clear. It wasn't safe to approach directly. He needed to wait, then follow underwater. Jack finished assembling his gear, mind racing. Was Emma alone? Was Sarah watching from somewhere? Were others watching too? A rental car pulled into the parking area, the first tourists of the day arriving. Jack needed to move before the cenote became crowded. He slipped into the cool water, the familiar embrace of weightlessness calming his frayed nerves. After a final equipment check, he descended into the blue depths. El Ojo Azul's underwater world was just as he remembered. A cathedral of limestone with ethereal light filtering down from above. Stalactites reached from the ceiling like stone fingers. Fish darted through patches of sunlight. Under different circumstances, the beauty would have been overwhelming. Jack followed the main cavern, swimming toward the area beneath the statue. The cenote's complex cave system extended for miles, but he and Sarah had explored only the accessible portions on their previous visits. She would choose a meeting place they both knew. A flash of movement ahead caught his attention. A diver emerging from a side passage. For a moment, Jack tensed, preparing to retreat. Then he recognized the distinctive purple stripe on the wetsuit. Sarah's suit from their honeymoon, the one she'd insisted on bringing to Florida because it was lucky. She hovered in the water, face obscured by her mask, a diving light in her hand. When she saw him, she gestured toward the side passage, then disappeared into it. Jack followed, hyper-aware of his breathing, of the diminishing light as they moved deeper into the cave system. His dive computer showed they were 30 feet down, moving away from the main cenote. Sarah stayed just ahead, glancing back occasionally to ensure he followed. The passage widened into a smaller chamber with an air pocket above, a bubble of breathable air trapped in the cave ceiling. Sarah surfaced into this pocket and Jack followed. They treaded water facing each other in the dim light filtering through from the passage. For a long moment, neither spoke. Jack removed his mask, drinking in the familiar contours of her face, searching for the woman he'd married. "You came," Sarah said finally, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. "Where's Emma?" Jack demanded. "Safe. With a friend, watching the entrance." Sarah's eyes never left his. "I needed to see you alone first." "Why? Afraid I brought the FBI?" "Did you?" "No," Jack replied honestly. "But I brought this." He reached into his waterproof bag and pulled out the flash drive, sealed in a plastic container. "Project Kingfisher. Your insurance policy." Sarah's eyes fixed on the container. "You've seen what's on it. Enough to understand why you're running. Not enough to forgive how you've done it." Pain flashed across her face. "I never wanted to hurt you, Jack. Everything I did was to protect you and Emma. By lying to me for our entire marriage, by disappearing with our daughter, by letting me think you were both dead." The words came out harsher than he'd intended, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "I didn't have a choice," Sarah said, her composure cracking slightly. "When Carmichael identified me in Boston, I knew they'd come for everything. The evidence, me, anyone connected to me. These people don't leave witnesses. You could have told me the truth. We could have faced it together." Sarah shook her head emphatically. "The moment you knew, you'd become a target too. The only protection you had was genuine ignorance." "That wasn't your choice to make," Jack insisted. "Wasn't it? I'm the one who brought this danger into our lives. I'm the one who knew what these people are capable of." Sarah's voice hardened. "You've read the files. You know what Kingfisher does to problems." Jack couldn't argue with that. The evidence painted a chilling picture of an organization that operated outside all legal and ethical boundaries. An organization that eliminated threats permanently. "So what now?" he asked. "We can't keep running forever." "We won't have to," Sarah replied. "These files can bring down Kingfisher and everyone involved. I have a contact, a journalist with international reach, powerful protections. Once the information goes public, they can't risk silencing all of us without confirming everything." "Why haven't you released it already?" Sarah hesitated. "Because once I do, there's no going back. Our lives as we knew them are over forever. I needed to be sure." "Sure of what?" "That I wasn't sentencing Emma to a life on the run for nothing. That the evidence would actually lead to justice, not just more cover-ups." Her eyes met his. "And I needed to give you a chance to be part of the decision. To see Emma again. To choose." The magnitude of what she was saying hit Jack like a physical blow. "You're giving me a choice." "Yes." Sarah moved closer in the water, her voice softening. "Come with us, Jack. Help me expose Kingfisher. We can start over somewhere new, somewhere safe once this is finished. Or take Emma and go. I've arranged clean identities, funds, everything you'd need. My contact can keep you both safe while I handle the fallout." Her voice broke slightly. "She needs her father, Jack. Whatever you think of me, don't punish her." Jack floated in stunned silence. After everything that had happened, after all the lies, Sarah was offering to sacrifice herself, to let him take Emma and disappear while she faced Kingfisher alone. Before he could respond, a noise echoed through the water, a metallic clang that didn't belong in the natural cave system. Sarah's expression changed instantly, fear replacing vulnerability. "We need to go," she said, reaching for her mask. "That's the signal. Someone's coming. Emma, no." "Our lookout. It means someone followed you." Sarah's movements became urgent, practiced. "Naturano, there's another exit from these caves. We planned for this." Jack replaced his mask, questions burning in his throat. Who followed me? FBI? Kingfisher? Does it matter?" Sarah checked her air gauge. "We have 15 minutes to the alternate exit. Stay close." The passages get narrow. They descended back into the water, swimming deeper into the cave system. Sarah led confidently, navigating passages Jack would never have found on his own. The limestone tunnels narrowed in places, forcing them to remove their tanks and push them ahead. The water grew cooler, the visibility worse. Jack fought against rising claustrophobia, focusing on Sarah's fins ahead of him. After what felt like hours but was probably less than 10 minutes, they reached another air pocket, larger than the first, with a small limestone shelf where they could sit partially out of the water. "We wait here," Sarah said, removing her mask again. "The entrance will look clear in about 20 minutes if it's just local security. Longer if it's Kingfisher." "And if it's not clear?" Jack asked, catching his breath. "Then we take the long way out." She gestured deeper into the cave system. "There's a passage that connects to another cenote about a kilometer from here. Harder to navigate, but it can be done." "Does Emma know about this backup plan?" Sarah nodded. "She and Miguel, our lookout, will meet us at the second location if necessary." She studied his face in the dim light. "You look like you have more questions than when we started." "Who's Miguel?" "A friend. Former Mexican intelligence. He owes me a favor." "Another operative?" Jack couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "Another person who wanted out of a dirty business," Sarah corrected gently. "There are more of us than you'd think." Jack ran a hand over his face, trying to organize his thoughts. "The death in Florida. The wetsuits found without bodies. That was all staged?" "Yes. We dropped the equipment offshore, where currents would carry it to discovery points. The timing had to be perfect." She looked away. "I knew how it would hurt you, but I also knew it would buy us the time we needed." "And Marion, is she alive?" Sarah's expression tightened. "I don't know. She wasn't supposed to engage if they came. Just delay them long enough for you to escape. Someone died in that fire at Kingfisher Lodge." "I know." Her voice was flat. "That's what happens when Kingfisher's involved. Collateral damage." The cold calculation in her tone chilled Jack more than the cave water. This was Elise speaking, not Sarah. But then her composure cracked, just for a moment. "I can't think about it, Jack. Not now. Marion knew the risks. She's been helping me stay hidden for years. If she's gone," she trailed off, then visibly steeled herself. "We honor her sacrifice by finishing this." Jack stared at his wife, this complex, contradictory woman who had lived two lives. "How many people have died because of these files? Because of what you stole?" "Too many," Sarah admitted. "And more will die if Kingfisher isn't exposed. They've operated in shadows for 15 years, Jack. Assassinations, blackmail, election manipulation. And it's getting worse. The journalist you mentioned, who is it?" "Lawrence Chen, Singapore-based, but with global reach. Multiple intelligence agencies want him, but no one can touch him. Too many powerful people owe him favors. He has the resources to verify everything, the platform to publish globally, and the security to survive the fallout." "You trust him?" "As much as I trust anyone outside this cave." Sarah checked her dive computer. 10 more minutes, then we check the entrance." Jack fell silent, weighing impossible choices. The flash drive in his waterproof bag contained enough evidence to destroy Project Kingfisher, and enough danger to get them all killed. Walking away with Emma meant abandoning Sarah to face that danger alone. Staying together meant putting Emma at continued risk. "Emma," he said suddenly. "How is she?" "Really?" Sarah's expression softened. "She misses you every day, asks about you constantly. I've told her as much of the truth as she can handle, that I made mistakes in my past, that bad people are looking for me, that we had to hide to keep everyone safe. Does she hate me for not finding her sooner?" "No," Sarah said firmly. She knows you didn't abandon her. That's why she insisted on being at the cenote today. She needed to see you herself." "Has she changed much?" A small smile touched Sarah's lips. She's taller, more stubborn, if you can believe it. She's picked up some Spanish, and she started drawing. Amazing detailed pictures. She has your eye for structure. Pride mingled with grief in Jack's chest. Pride at who his daughter was becoming. Grief for the moments he'd missed. Time to check, Sarah said, reaching for her mask again. I'll go. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, take the second exit. Follow the yellow guideline. It's narrow but passable. I'm coming with you, Jack insisted. Sarah shook her head. One swimmer attracts less attention. And if something happens to me, Emma needs you to get out. Before he could protest further, she slipped beneath the water and disappeared into the passage. Jack counted seconds, then minutes, fighting the impulse to follow. 4 minutes passed. 4.5. Just as he was reaching for his mask, preparing to follow regardless of her instructions, bubbles disturbed the water surface. Sarah emerged, pulling off her mask with an expression of relief. It's clear. Miguel says whoever it was made a sweep of the area and left. Probably local security doing a routine check. Where's Emma? Waiting at the meeting point. About 15 minutes from here. She hesitated. Jack, before we go, I need to know. Have you decided? Jack met her gaze steadily. I'm not letting you face this alone. And I'm not leaving you behind. We go together, all of us, or not at all. Something like hope flickered in Sarah's eyes. You understand what that means? No going back to our old lives. No guarantee of safety. I understand exactly what it means, Jack replied. It means we stop running and start fighting. It means Emma grows up with both her parents. It means we face whatever comes next as a family. Sarah's composure finally broke completely. She reached for him across the water, her arms encircling his neck in an awkward, desperate embrace. I'm so sorry, she whispered against his ear. For all of it, Jack held her, reconciling the woman in his arms with both versions he knew. Sarah and Elise, wife and operative, truth and deception. She was all of these things and something more complex besides. We don't have time for this, he said gently, pulling back. Take me to our daughter. The swim to the cenote entrance felt shorter than their frantic escape had been. They emerged into the main pool to find the tourist crowds had arrived. Dozens of people swimming, taking photos, oblivious to the drama unfolding beneath the surface. Perfect cover. They exited the water casually, blending with other divers removing equipment. Sarah led the way along a side trail that tourists rarely used, moving with purpose through the dense vegetation. The meeting point is just ahead, she said over her shoulder. A small clearing where... She stopped abruptly as they rounded a corner. Jack nearly collided with her back. In the clearing stood Ryan Mercer, and beside him, looking uncertain but unharmed, was Emma. Hello, Elise, Ryan said calmly. It's been a long time. Sarah's body coiled like a spring. How did you find us? Ryan's smile was cold. Jack called me from Hope. Not hard to guess where he was heading after that. The cenote was mentioned in your honeymoon photos online. Where's Miguel? Sarah demanded. Your lookout. Took a substantial amount of cash to walk away. Mercenaries aren't known for their loyalty. Jack moved forward slowly. Emma, are you okay? Emma nodded, her eyes huge in her small face. Dad. Her voice was tentative, as if she couldn't quite believe he was real. It's me, sweetheart, Jack confirmed, fighting to keep his voice steady. Everything's going to be all right. Is it? Ryan asked mildly. That rather depends on what happens next. He turned his attention back to Sarah. 10 years I've been looking for you, Elise. 10 years wondering if my brother died by your hand or if you just left him to burn. It was self-defense, Sarah said. He attacked me when he realized what I'd found. And what was that exactly? Ryan moved closer, keeping Emma beside him. What was worth killing him for? Project Kingfisher, Jack interjected. Your brother was developing surveillance technology for a black ops program that was targeting American citizens. When Sarah discovered it, she copied the evidence. Daniel caught her. Ryan looked genuinely surprised. Is that what she told you? That Daniel was some kind of villain creating evil spy tech? He laughed without humor. My brother was developing encryption to protect people from government surveillance. He was a privacy advocate, for God's sake. Sarah shook her head. That's what he told you. The reality was different. The reality, Ryan countered, is that you were the operative, Elise. You were working for them. I've spent years piecing it together. Jack looked between them, uncertainty creeping in. Sarah? He's twisting things, she insisted. Daniel's company was contracted by Kingfisher. The encryption had backdoors built in specifically for government access. I found the documentation. Documentation you manipulated, Ryan accused. You were the inside agent all along. Emma looked confused and frightened by the adult's confrontation. She inched away from Ryan toward Jack. Ryan didn't seem to notice, his attention fixed on Sarah. Where are the files, Elise? The ones you stole? Daniel's work that you corrupted? Sarah's eyes narrowed. Why do you want them? To clear my brother's name. To prove what you really are. Ryan's hand moved to his waistband, where Jack glimpsed the outline of a gun. And to finish what Daniel started. In that moment, Jack understood. You're a Kingfisher too, he said quietly. That's how you found us so quickly. Ryan didn't deny it. There are sides to this story you don't understand, Jack. Your wife has been manipulating you from the beginning. Don't listen to him, Sarah urged. This is what they do. Distort, manipulate, create doubt. Emma had nearly reached Jack now. He held out his hand to her, heart pounding. Just a few more steps. The files, Elise, Ryan insisted. Where are they? Gone, she replied. I sent them to my contact this morning. By now they are being verified. By tomorrow they'll be public. Ryan's face hardened. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone. It's probably already starting to break. Emma reached Jack. He pulled her close, wrapping his arm around her shoulders, feeling her trembling against him. Dad, she whispered. I knew you'd find us. Ryan pulled out his phone, glancing at the screen. Something he saw there changed his expression from confidence to concern. What have you done? What I should have done years ago, Sarah said steadily. Expose Kingfisher. All of it. The operations. The targets. The personnel. She paused. Including you, Ryan. His face contorted with rage. The gun appeared in his hand. You've killed us all. No, Sarah contradicted him. I've freed us all. Time seemed to slow as Ryan raised the gun. Jack shoved Emma behind him, lunging forward. Sarah moved simultaneously, her dive knife, which Jack hadn't even noticed she was carrying, flashing in her hand. 2 shots cracked through the jungle clearing. Ryan staggered backward, a look of surprise on his face. Blood bloomed on his chest, not from Sarah's knife, but from bullet wounds. From the edge of the clearing stepped Vega, Ryan's private security contractor from Vancouver, gun still aimed at Ryan's fallen form. You're late, Sarah said to him, not lowering her knife. Traffic, Vega replied dryly. You okay, Thompson? Jack stood frozen, arms still wrapped protectively around Emma. You're working with Sarah? Insurance policy, Sarah explained. I didn't know if I could trust Ryan, so I made arrangements with Vega before you even arrived in Vancouver. You're Kingfisher too? Jack asked Vega incredulously. Vega shook his head. Former Navy SEAL. Did some contracting work for them years ago. Saw what they were becoming, got out. Been on their kill list ever since. Your wife contacted me through mutual connections when she realized Ryan was looking for her. Jack's mind raced to catch up. What about Marion? The fire at Kingfisher Lodge? She's alive, Vega confirmed. Wounded, but secure. My team extracted her. Sarah finally lowered her knife, reaching for Emma. We need to move. Others will be coming. Emma looked up at Jack, her eyes reflecting his own confusion and exhaustion. Dad, are we safe now? Jack looked at his daughter. Older, more serious than the child who had disappeared beneath the Florida waters, but unmistakably his Emma. Then it's Sarah, the woman he'd married and the operative she'd been, now merged into one complicated truth. Finally at Vega, standing over Ryan's body, already on his phone making arrangements. Not yet, he told Emma honestly, but we will be. He pulled the flash drive from his waterproof bag. You said you sent the files to your contact this morning. Was that true? Sarah's eyes met his. No, I was bluffing. I've been waiting for you. She held out her hand. It's your decision too, Jack. You've earned that right. Jack placed the drive in her palm, wrapping his fingers around hers. Together, he said. We finish this together. As they moved through the jungle toward Vega's waiting vehicle, Emma's hand clutched firmly in his. Jack knew there would be more revelations, more dangers, more impossible choices ahead. But for the first time since watching Sarah and Emma disappear beneath the waves, he felt something close to hope. The family that emerged from those Sea Note caves wasn't the same one that had arrived in Florida 10 days ago. Their old lives were gone forever. But something new was taking shape, something built on difficult truths rather than comfortable lies. And for now, that was enough. Singapore appeared through the airplane window like a glittering mirage. A constellation of lights spread across the dark water. In the seat beside Jack, Emma pressed her face to the glass, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten in the wonder of arrival. It looks like stars fell into the ocean, she whispered. Jack smiled, marveling at her resilience. 2 weeks of constant movement, Mexico to Costa Rica to the Philippines, now Singapore, and still she found moments of childlike awe amid the chaos. Sarah sat across the aisle, posture rigid, eyes constantly scanning the cabin. Elise's vigilance in Sarah's body. 3 flights, 3 different identities. The documents Vega had provided were flawless, but Jack could see the toll the constant vigilance was taking on her. Final approach, the pilot announced in English, then repeated it in Mandarin. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened. Almost there, Jack told Emma, squeezing her hand. Will we meet your friend today? She asked Sarah. Tomorrow, Sarah replied with a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Tonight we rest. The truth, which they hadn't shared with Emma, was more complicated. Lawrence Chen had agreed to meet them, but with conditions, secure location, specific protocols, no electronic devices. The journalist was nearly as paranoid as Sarah, with good reason. People who expose government black ops programs tended to have short life expectancies. Singapore's Changi Airport was a marvel of efficiency and security. Cameras everywhere. Facial recognition integrated into immigration systems. Precisely the environment Sarah had been avoiding for weeks. But Chen had insisted. His security team had arranged their passage through diplomatic channels, using the credentials of a Southeast Asian news organization. Still, Jack could see Sarah's tension as they approached immigration. Her knuckles were white around her carry-on bag, which contained the flash drive secured in a specialized case designed to withstand electromagnetic interference. Cambodia International Press, the immigration officer read from their documents, examining Sarah's diplomat passport. Purpose of visit? Conference on regional security, Sarah replied smoothly, the slight accent she'd adopted for this identity perfectly consistent. 3 days only. The officer nodded, stamped the passport, and waved them through. No deeper questions, no lingering looks. The invisibility of diplomatic credentials at work. A driver met them outside customs, a slender Chinese woman in a conservative suit who introduced herself only as Lin. She led them to a waiting sedan with tinted windows and diplomatic plates. Mr. Chen sends his regards, Lin said once they were underway. He has arranged accommodations at the Shangri-La. You will be in the Valley Wing, which has its own security system. When will we meet him? Sarah asked. Tomorrow at noon. Until then, you are not to leave the hotel or use any communication devices. Is that understood? Jack and Sarah nodded. Standard security protocols. Nothing they hadn't expected. Emma fell asleep against Jack's shoulder during the drive, her breathing deep and even. Jack studied her face in the passing streetlights, the face he'd thought he might never see again. The past 2 weeks had given him glimpses of who she'd become during their separation. Stronger, more serious, but still unmistakably his Emma. She'd inherited his analytical mind and Sarah's adaptability, a combination that had served her well in their current circumstances. The Shangri-La lived up to its reputation for luxury, but Jack barely noticed the elegant furnishings of their suite. His attention was fixed on the practical details: exit routes, sight lines from the windows, proximity to elevators and stairs. Sarah's hypervigilance had become his too. After settling Emma in the bedroom, Jack found Sarah on the suite's balcony, staring out at the Singapore skyline. Her posture was different now that Emma couldn't see her. Shoulders slumped, the weight of weeks on the run evident in every line of her body. We made it, Jack said softly, joining her. Sarah didn't look at him. For now. You don't trust Chen? I trust his self-interest. As long as this story benefits him more than betraying us does, we're safe. She finally turned to him. But if Kingfisher reaches him first with a better offer, Jack absorbed this. Then we have a backup plan. Always. She moved closer, her voice dropping. If anything happens tomorrow, if something feels wrong, take Emma and go to the American Embassy. Ask for Consul James Whitaker. Use the phrase, Mockingbird sends regards from Taipei. He'll get you out of the country. Without you? Jack challenged. If necessary. Jack shook his head firmly. Weihum, we've had this discussion. We stay together or not at all. This isn't about what we want, Sarah countered. It's about Emma. One of us has to survive to protect her. Before Jack could respond, the hotel phone rang. Sarah motioned him to silence and answered with caution. Yes, Nariyamur. I see. Thank you. She hung up, expression troubled. What is it? Chen wants to meet tonight instead. He's sending a car in an hour. Jack tensed. Why the change? He didn't say. Lin claims it's a security precaution. Sarah was already moving toward her bag. I don't like it. Could be legitimate, Jack suggested, though his instincts agreed with hers. Maybe he received intel about a threat. Or maybe he's setting us up. Sarah pulled a small device from her bag, a signal detector Vega had provided. She swept it methodically around the suite, checking for electronic surveillance. Clean, at least. Jack checked on Emma, still soundly asleep. Should we wake her? Sarah considered, then shook her head. Better to let her rest. We'll leave her with the backup phone. If we're not back in 3 hours, she knows to call the emergency contact. They'd prepared Emma for this contingency back in Mexico, drilled her on what to do if they didn't return, who to contact, what to say. Jack hated that his 8-year-old daughter needed to know such things, but the alternative was worse. The car arrived precisely 1 hour later. Not the same sedan, but a larger SUV with more heavily tinted windows. Lynn was absent, replaced by 2 stone-faced men who didn't offer names. Mr. Chen sends apologies for the change in schedule, one said mechanically. There has been a development. Jack and Sarah exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. This felt wrong, but refusing to go would only delay the inevitable confrontation. Better to meet it on their terms. One moment, Sarah said, returning to the suite momentarily. Jack knew she was leaving Emma a note with additional instructions, just in case. The drive took them away from the city center, through progressively industrial areas until they reached the port district. Container ships loomed in the distance, skeletal cranes silhouetted against the night sky. The SUV turned into a complex of warehouses, stopping before a nondescript building with a single light burning above steel doors. This is not what we agreed to, Sarah said sharply. Mr. Chen values his privacy, the driver replied without emotion. This facility is secure. Jack positioned himself slightly behind Sarah as they exited the vehicle, scanning for potential threats. The warehouse door opened as they approached, revealing a cavernous space mostly in shadow. At its center, a single table with 3 chairs stood in a pool of light. A man sat waiting, slender, bespectacled in his 50s, with the careful grooming of someone accustomed to appearing on camera. Lawrence Chen. Kerseshchurich. He stood as they approached. Mrs. Thompson. Or should I say, Agent Blackwood? Sarah stopped just outside the circle of light. You know who I am. I make it my business to know who I'm dealing with, Chen replied smoothly. Especially when they bring me evidence that could start an international incident. Then you understand the risks we've taken to get here, Jack said. Chen gestured to the empty chairs. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. Sarah remained standing. This meeting was supposed to happen at noon tomorrow, at your office. With your security team present. Plans change, Chen said simply. Information reaches me that suggests greater urgency. Please, the drive? Jack felt Sarah tense beside him. This wasn't right. Chen's manner, the setting, the abrupt changes, all warning signs. First, I need assurances, Sarah insisted. Guarantees of our safety once this goes public. Chen spread his hands. Of course. New identities, relocation, financial support, all arranged. I have considerable resources. And protection from Kingfisher? They cannot touch you once the story breaks. Too much scrutiny. Jack studied Chen carefully. The journalist seemed confident, perhaps overly so. His eyes kept flicking to the flash drive case Sarah carried, his eagerness poorly disguised beneath professional calm. Who told you about Kingfisher? Jack asked suddenly. We haven't mentioned that name yet. A flicker of something, surprise? Annoyance crossed Chen's features before smoothing away. Your reputation precedes you, Agent Blackwood. Your work with the program is known in certain circles. No, Sarah said flatly. It isn't. My connection to Kingfisher was scrubbed from all official records. That was part of my exit agreement. Chen's smile tightened. Perhaps I misspoke. The atmosphere in the warehouse shifted subtly. Jack became aware of movement in the shadows beyond their circle of light. Sarah had seen it too, her posture changing incrementally, weight shifting to the balls of her feet. You're not Lawrence Chen, she said, voice deadly calm. The man's smile disappeared entirely. A shame. I had hoped to do this the easy way. He raised his hand in a small gesture. Lights flooded the warehouse, revealing what the darkness had hidden. 6 armed men positioned strategically around the perimeter. Not local security, professionals. Military precision in their positioning. Kingfisher, Sarah breathed. What remains of it, the man confirmed. Thanks to your preliminary leaks, we've had to make certain adjustments. But the project continues under new management. Jack's mind raced. Preliminary leaks? Sarah hadn't released anything yet. Unless the drive is a decoy, he realized aloud. You already sent the files to the real Chen. Sarah didn't confirm or deny, but the slight softening in the imposter's expression told Jack he'd guessed correctly. "That is unfortunate," the man said, "though not entirely unexpected. We suspected you might have taken precautions." He sighed theatrically. "This complicates matters but doesn't fundamentally change them." The drive agent Blackwood. "Now, and if I refuse," Sarah challenged, "then we move to less pleasant methods of persuasion?" The man nodded to one of his operatives, who stepped forward with a tablet. He turned it to show them the screen. Jack's heart stopped. On the screen was live video footage of their hotel suite, of Emma, still asleep in the bed where they'd left her. A man in black stood beside the bed, watching her. "No," Jack breathed. "Your daughter is quite safe," the false Chen assured them. "For now, my associate will ensure she remains that way, provided we reach an agreement quickly." Sarah's composure cracked for the first time since Jack had found her in the cenote. "If you touch her, that's entirely up to you," the man cut her off. "The drive and the original files, all copies, in exchange for your daughter's safety." "I think that's more than fair." Jack felt the world narrowing to this moment, this impossible choice, the evidence that could bring down Kingfisher or their daughter's life. No parent should ever have to make such a decision, but Sarah was already moving, reaching into her bag to withdraw the specialized case. "Sarah, no," Jack protested. "If we give them everything, I know," she said quietly. Her eyes met his, a message passing between them that the Kingfisher operatives couldn't interpret. She pressed the case into his hands, then turned back to the imposter. "I need to verify that Emma is unharmed," she insisted. "A real-time confirmation. Let me speak to her." The man considered this, then nodded to the operative with the tablet. "Arrange it." As the operative made a call, Jack examined the case in his hands. It looked identical to the one Sarah had been carrying throughout their journey. But something in her expression, in the pressure of her fingers as she'd passed it to him, suggested otherwise. The tablet operator turned the screen toward them again. The man in their hotel room had moved to wake Emma gently. She sat up, blinking in confusion at the stranger, then at the tablet he held toward her. "Mom? Dad?" Her voice was small, frightened. "What's happening?" "Everything's okay, sweetheart," Sarah said with remarkable steadiness. "Bunwane, we're just checking on you. Did you have a good nap?" Emma nodded uncertainly. "Where are you?" "We're meeting a friend," Jack improvised. "We'll be back soon. Remember what we talked about? About being brave?" Recognition flickered in Emma's eyes. The emergency protocols they'd established. "Yes, I remember." "Good girl," Sarah said. "We'll see you very soon. We love you." The call ended abruptly. The false Chen extended his hand for the case. "The drive, please." Jack hesitated, still trying to decode Sarah's silent message. What was he missing? "Jack," Sarah said softly. "It's okay. Give it to him." Something in her tone clicked the pieces into place. Jack handed over the case, his expression carefully neutral. The imposter opened it immediately, examining the flash drive inside with evident satisfaction. "Wise decision. We fulfilled our part," Sarah said. "Now you'll leave our daughter alone." "Of course." The man pocketed the drive. "My associate will depart once we verified the contents. But I'm afraid your involvement doesn't end quite yet. There are questions about exactly what information you've already distributed. People very eager to speak with you." The armed men began closing in. "That wasn't the deal," Jack protested. "The deal evolves," the man replied coldly. "Surely you understand, Agent Blackwood. Nothing personal, just tidying up loose ends." Sarah moved closer to Jack, her back to his. "How long?" she asked quietly. He didn't need clarification. 3 minutes since the call ended." "Should be enough," she murmured. The warehouse erupted in blinding light and deafening sound as flashbang grenades detonated simultaneously at multiple points. Jack dropped instinctively, pulling Sarah down with him as automatic weapons fire shattered the air above their heads. Chaos engulfed the warehouse. Through the ringing in his ears, Jack heard shouted commands in multiple languages. The Kingfisher team returned fire, using the furniture as cover. The false Chen was suddenly gone, vanished in the confusion. "Stay down," Sarah shouted over the cacophony, covering Jack with her body. The action was so automatic, so protective, that it struck him like a physical blow. This was Sarah, his Sarah, risking herself to shield him. The firefight ended as abruptly as it had begun. Silence fell, broken only by the echoing report of the last shots. Jack raised his head cautiously. Black-clad figures moved through the smoke, weapons trained on the downed Kingfisher operatives. Not local police, something more specialized. A man approached them, his face concealed by tactical gear. "Mockingbird," he said, using Sarah's old code name. "Area secure." Sarah stood, pulling Jack up with her. Emma, she demanded. Asset secure, the man confirmed. Extraction team reports success. Rendezvous point Alpha in 30 minutes. Relief flooded through Jack so intensely that his knees nearly buckled. Emma was safe. Whatever else happened, their daughter was out of Kingfisher's reach. Who are you people? He asked the tactical leader. The man removed his mask, revealing a face Jack recognized from Sarah's files. James Whitaker, the embassy contact she'd mentioned earlier. Not a consul, apparently. Let's just say we're the oversight that Kingfisher never had, Whitaker replied cryptically. We've been tracking their operations for years, building a case. Your wife's evidence was the missing piece. Sarah surveyed the warehouse. Kingfisher operatives being secured, evidence being collected. You got my message. Whitaker nodded. The emergency protocol Emma activated was received by our Singapore station. We've had a team standing by since you entered the country. The false Chen? In the wind, but we'll find him. The thumb drive? Encrypted dummy, Sarah confirmed. Some real files mixed with corrupted data. Enough to keep them busy, not enough to do damage. Jack stared at her. You knew it was a trap. I suspected, she corrected. When they moved up the meeting, the real Chen works exactly as advertised. Methodical, cautious, inflexible on security protocols. He wouldn't have changed plans without direct communication with me. Whitaker gestured toward a waiting vehicle. We should move. Debriefing at the secure location. As they walked through the warehouse, stepping over shell casings and broken glass, Jack struggled to process the night's events. These people you're working with, who are they exactly? Internal affairs, essentially, Sarah replied quietly. A joint task force investigating abuses within intelligence communities. They approached me 3 months ago after Carmichael spotted me in Boston, offered protection in exchange for my evidence against Kingfisher. You never told me. I couldn't risk it. Not until I was sure they weren't another Kingfisher offshoot. Her hand found his, squeezed briefly. I'm sorry for keeping you in the dark. Again, the implications hit Jack like aftershocks. The diving disappearance? Was that planned with them too? Sarah shook her head. That was my contingency. When Carmichael identified me, I moved up my timetable. The task force didn't know where I was until I contacted them from Mexico. They reached the vehicle, a nondescript van with diplomatic plates. Whitaker opened the door, revealing the answer to Jack's most urgent question. Emma sat inside, wrapped in a blanket, clutching her stuffed orca that had somehow made the journey from Florida to Singapore. When she saw them, her face transformed with relief. Mom! Dad! She launched herself into their arms, and for a moment, the world contracted to just the three of them. Jack, Sarah, and the daughter they'd both moved heaven and earth to protect. Over Emma's head, Sarah's eyes met Jack's. Vulnerable, questioning, seeking something she wasn't sure she'd find. He held her gaze steadily, trying to convey what words couldn't encompass. They had survived. They were together. Whatever came next, they would face it as a family. Where are we going? Emma asked as they settled into the van. Somewhere safe, Sarah told her. For a little while. And then? Jack looked at Sarah, the question hanging between them. The evidence against Kingfisher would be public soon. The program would be exposed, its operatives identified, its political protectors named. But what came after for them, for this fragile, reconstituted family, remained uncertain. And then we start over, Jack said with more confidence than he felt. Somewhere new. Emma considered this, her expression serious beyond her years. Will we have to hide forever? Sarah smoothed her daughter's hair. Not forever, sweetheart. Just until the bad people are held accountable. How long will that take? It was Whitaker who answered, his tone gentler than before. That's what we're going to talk about at our next stop. Your parents have helped us expose something very dangerous. Now we need to make sure all of you stay safe while we finish our work. The van wound through Singapore's streets, eventually pulling into an underground garage beneath an unmarked building in the diplomatic quarter. Security was tight. Multiple checkpoints, biometric scanners, armed guards. Jack kept Emma close as they moved through the facility, following Whitaker through sterile corridors to a conference room where several people waited. Among them, to Jack's astonishment, was Marion Blackwood. Marion! Sarah crossed the room quickly, embracing her aunt. You're all right. Takes more than Kingfisher goons to finish me off, Marion replied with grim humor. Her left arm was in a sling, and a healing cut ran along her jawline. But she was very much alive. Your man Vega knows his business. Emma approached cautiously. Are you my great aunt? Mom told me about you. Marion's stern features softened as she regarded Emma. I suppose I am. You look like your mother when she was your age. Same stubborn chin." Another figure stepped forward, tall, dignified, with silver-streaked dark hair and wire-rimmed glasses. The real Lawrence Chen. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, extending his hand to Sarah. "Or perhaps you prefer Ms. Blackwood now? We have much to discuss." The next several hours passed in a blur of debriefings, explanations, and planning sessions. The task force, officially designated Project Sunlight, laid out what Jack had already begun to suspect: a years-long operation to document and dismantle Rouge elements within intelligence communities, focused particularly on Kingfisher's widespread abuses. "Your wife's evidence was the keystone," Whitaker explained to Jack. "We had fragments, suspicions, but nothing concrete enough to move against the program's political protectors. The files she extracted provided the connections we needed." "What happens now?" Jack asked, glancing at Sarah, who sat beside Emma on a sofa across the room, helping her with a late meal someone had brought in. "Now we move to the endgame," Whitaker replied. "Chen publishes the core findings simultaneously in 27 countries tomorrow morning. Congressional oversight committees receive the full documentation. Arrests begin within hours of publication. And us? That's more complicated." Whitaker's expression turned grave. "Kingfisher's remnants will be desperate once the story breaks. Anyone associated with exposing them becomes a target. You, your wife, your daughter, you'll need protection. Possibly for years." Jack had anticipated as much, but hearing it stated so bluntly made it real in a way imagination hadn't. "What are our options?" "Witness security program," Whitaker began. "New identities, relocation, financial support. Or you join us." The offer hung in the air between them. "Your architectural expertise could be valuable to Project Sunlight. We build safe houses, design secure facilities. People with your skills are rare, especially those who already understand the stakes." Jack stared at him. "You want me to work for you? After everything intelligence agencies have done to my family?" "We are not them," Whitaker said firmly. "We're the correction, the accountability. What happened with Kingfisher, the abuses, the overreach, it happened because good people didn't speak up, didn't act as a check on power." Before Jack could respond, Sarah joined them, having settled Emma with Marion. "He's right, Jack," she said quietly. "Project Sunlight is what I thought I was joining when I was recruited out of college. What intelligence work should be: ethical, accountable, protective of civil liberties rather than threatening them." Jack looked between them, realization dawning. "You've already discussed this." "Hypothetically," Sarah admitted. "When they first approached me in Mexico, they offered us both positions, contingent on your agreement. And you didn't tell me." "I needed to be sure they were legitimate first," Sarah explained. "That this wasn't another manipulation." Jack processed this, the familiar frustration at being kept in the dark warring with his understanding of Sarah's caution. "And now you're sure?" "As sure as I can be," she confirmed. "They've proven themselves tonight. And Chen's involvement lends credibility. He's built his career on exposing government overreach, not enabling it." Whitaker stepped away discreetly, leaving them to discuss the matter privately. Jack moved to the room's large window, looking out at Singapore's glittering skyline. The future stretched before them, uncertain, potentially dangerous, but also filled with possibility. "What do you want to do?" he asked Sarah, who stood beside him now. "I want our daughter to be safe," she said simply. "I want to atone for my part in Kingfisher. And I want us to stay together, if that's still what you want." The question beneath her words was clear. After everything, did he still want a life with her? The Sarah he'd married and the Elise she'd been, now merged into one complex, flawed, extraordinary woman. Jack turned to face her fully. "When I thought I'd lost you both, nothing else mattered. Not the lies, not the past, not even my own safety. Finding Emma was all I cared about." He took her hands in his. "Finding you again was the surprise." Sarah's eyes glistened in the dim light. "Even knowing everything I've done, everything I was, I'm still learning who you are," Jack admitted. "The full truth of you. But I know enough to be certain of one thing. I want to build our next chapter together. Whatever that looks like." Relief transformed her face, vulnerability replacing the careful composure she'd maintained through most of their ordeal. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not," Jack agreed with the ghost of a smile. "But you're stuck with me anyway." A small voice interrupted them. "Are you guys going to kiss now? Because it's okay if you do." They turned to find Emma watching them, her expression hopeful. Jack laughed, the first genuine laugh in what felt like weeks. and pulled their daughter into their embrace. "What do you think, Emma?" he asked her. "About starting somewhere new? Maybe doing some important work that helps people?" Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to all decisions. "Will we be together? All three of us?" "Yes," Sarah promised. "No more separations. No more secrets." "Then I think it's good," Emma decided. "But can I have a dog at the new place? I've been asking for forever." Jack met Sarah's eyes over their daughter's head, a silent agreement passing between them. "I think that can be arranged," he told Emma. Later that night, in a secure apartment within the facility, Jack stood watching Emma sleep, her face peaceful for the first time since their reunion. Sarah joined him, leaning against his shoulder in companionable silence. "Tomorrow everything changes," she said eventually. "Once Chen publishes, there's no going back. The story will be everywhere." "Are you ready for that?" Jack asked. "For people to know about Kingfisher? About your involvement?" "No," she admitted, "but it's necessary. The truth usually is, however painful." Jack thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a rental boat in Florida to a secure facility in Singapore. From deception to truth. From loss to recovery. Nothing was resolved entirely. The danger hadn't passed. The future remained uncertain. But for the first time since watching Sarah and Emma disappear beneath the waves, he felt the weight lifting. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Not as Jack and Sarah Thompson, the fabricated identity of a perfect suburban family, but as themselves. Complicated, flawed, resilient, real. "Get some rest," he told Sarah gently. "Tomorrow's going to be intense." She nodded but made no move to leave his side. Instead, she twined her fingers with his, her head still resting against his shoulder as they watched over their sleeping daughter. Outside the window, Singapore continued its nocturnal symphony of lights and movement, oblivious to the seismic revelations that would soon emanate from within its borders. In less than 12 hours, Project Kingfisher would cease to be a shadow and become front-page news worldwide. Lives would be upended, careers destroyed, powerful people brought to account. And somewhere in that turbulence, a family that had been broken would continue the delicate process of rebuilding itself. Not as it had been before, but as something new. Something stronger for having been tested by fire and water, by secrets and truths. "We'll be okay," Sarah whispered, as much to herself as to Jack. And despite everything, despite the uncertainty that stretched before them, Jack believed her. 3 years later, Jack Thompson stood on the deck of a modest sailboat, watching the sunset paint New Zealand's Bay of Islands in shades of amber and gold. Beside him, Emma adjusted the trim on the jib sail with practiced ease, her movements confident despite being only 11 years old. "Wind's shifting," she called. "Coming more from the west now." "Nice catch," Jack replied, making his own adjustments to the mainsail. "Ready to head back?" Emma nodded, her sun-streaked hair whipping around her face in the breeze. 3 years in the southern hemisphere had darkened her complexion and lightened her hair, making her look more like Sarah than ever. But the thoughtful precision with which she handled the boat, that was pure Jack. They tacked smoothly, the small craft responding to their coordinated movements like an extension of themselves. Jack felt the familiar satisfaction of working in harmony with his daughter, communicating more through shared understanding than words. Their small cove appeared around the headland, a sheltered inlet with a wooden dock extending from a pebbled beach. A figure stood waiting, hand raised in greeting. Even at this distance, Jack would know Sarah anywhere. As they approached the dock, Emma leapt nimbly from the boat to secure the line. "Mom, we saw dolphins today." "A whole pod!" Sarah caught her in a hug, steadying them both on the weathered planks. "Did you remember to take pictures for your biology project?" "Dad got some good ones," Emma confirmed, "and I recorded their sounds with the hydrophone." Jack secured the boat, then joined his family on the dock. Sarah's smile as he approached still had the power to warm him from within. 3 years of building their new life hadn't diminished that effect. "Successful expedition?" she asked, leaning into his embrace. "Very," he confirmed. "Your daughter is becoming quite the sailor." "Among other things," Sarah agreed proudly. Their cottage sat just up from the beach, a simple structure with large windows and an expansive deck. Jack had designed it himself, incorporating both beauty and security, as he now did with all the safe houses he created for Project Sunlight. The New Zealand posting was their third since Singapore. First had been a year in a remote corner of Canada, then 18 months in South Africa. Each move following the rhythms of Project Sunlight's expanding mission and the occasionally resurfacing threats from former Kingfisher operatives still at large. Inside, the evening meal waited on the table. Local fish, vegetables from their garden, fresh bread. The domesticity of the scene belied the sophisticated security systems hidden throughout the property and the regular check-ins from Whitaker's team. "Any news today?" Jack asked as they settled around the table. Sarah's expression turned more serious. "Carmichael's been located in Argentina. Extraction team is moving in tomorrow." "Will you need to go?" Emma asked, the shadow of old fears flitting across her face. "No, sweetheart," Sarah assured her. "My field days are over. I'm strictly analysis now, remember?" Emma relaxed. The unspoken pact between Jack and Sarah since joining Project Sunlight had been clear. Neither would take field assignments. Their contributions would be made from secure locations, using their specialized skills without placing themselves in direct danger. For Jack, that meant designing secure facilities and transportation protocols. For Sarah, it meant analyzing intelligence patterns and training new recruits in counter-surveillance techniques. Both roles critical, neither requiring separation from Emma. "I got an email from Uncle Ryan today," Emma announced, changing the subject as she served herself salad. Jack and Sarah exchanged glances. Ryan Mercer, the real Ryan Mercer, had been a complicated addition to their lives. The bullet wounds in Mexico had nearly killed him, but his survival had led to revelations neither side had expected. "How is he?" Jack asked carefully. "Good. His physical therapy is almost finished, and he's walking without the cane now." Emma's voice carried the casual acceptance only a child could manage for their extraordinary circumstances. "He sent me another book on marine biology." The truth about Ryan had emerged during his recovery and subsequent debriefing. He hadn't been Kingfisher, but rather a CIA analyst who'd been investigating them independently, convinced they were responsible for his brother's death. His pursuit of Sarah had been personal, not operational, until Kingfisher operatives had approached him, using his vendetta for their purposes. His eventual cooperation with Project Sunlight had been instrumental in identifying remaining Kingfisher cells. His relationship with the Thompsons had evolved from hostile to cautiously respectful, particularly with Emma, who'd formed an unlikely bond with her uncle through shared interests in marine science. After dinner, while Emma worked on her homework, Jack and Sarah stepped onto the deck with mugs of tea, watching stars emerge above the bay. These quiet moments had become precious markers of normalcy in lives still shaped by extraordinary circumstances. "Chen called today," Sarah said after a comfortable silence. "The book is finished. Publication set for next spring." Jack nodded. Lawrence Chen's comprehensive account of Project Kingfisher and its aftermath had been 3 years in the making. A meticulous documentation of government overreach and the system that ultimately held it accountable. "Are we in it?" he asked. "Only as anonymous sources," Sarah confirmed. "Our names and location remain classified." The breeze carried salt and the scent of night-blooming flowers. Below them, phosphorescence glimmered in the gentle waves, a phenomenon Emma had been documenting for her science project. "Do you ever miss it?" Sarah asked suddenly. "Our old life?" Jack considered the question carefully. "Parts of it. The simplicity, the certainty." He turned to face her. "But it was built on a foundation that couldn't last." "Because of my lies," Sarah said, the old guilt surfacing. "Because the world is more complicated than I understood," Jack corrected gently. "What we have now is harder, messier, but it's real." Sarah's hand found his on the railing. "Emma seems happy here. She's resilient, like her mother, and grounded, like her father." Inside the cottage, Emma's laughter drifted out through an open window. She was video chatting with friends from her new school, normal childhood connections that had seemed impossible in those dark days 3 years ago. The Kingfisher revelations had rocked governments worldwide, as predicted. Hearings, resignations, arrests had followed. Some justice had been served. Some perpetrators had escaped. The system wasn't perfect, but it was better than it had been. More transparent, more accountable. Their role in those events remained classified, their identities protected. But within Project Sunlight, the Mockingbird case was legendary, the operation that exposed the darkness and began the healing. "We should join her," Jack said eventually. "It's getting late." Sarah nodded but lingered a moment longer, her eyes on the horizon where sky met water. "Sometimes I still can't believe we made it to the surface." Jack understood perfectly what she meant. After so long in the depths of secrets, of danger, of deception, the simple act of breathing freely remained something of a miracle. Together, they turned toward the warm light of their home, where their daughter waited, the future they had fought for, dived for, surfaced for, together at last.